To the first Deputy Chair of the Parliament. Thank you, Batoni Lado. I first of all welcome you all in the first place, the guests from different universities, the professors, representatives of Jewish community. I welcome as well the professors of Tbilisi State University, who also, Mr. Fuchs, His Excellency, Ambassador of Israel, and all politicians who have big interests in events like this in our country. We should be proud that today in Tbilisi State University we're hosting such serious international conference. It was mentioned here already many words about uniqueness of Georgian Jew relationships that are 20 centuries old. So in Georgia we have small Israel I consider the Jews community, and there is small Georgia in Israel. I also consider community of Georgian Jews there. We should show all the world how two different nations, different in history, in their religion, in ethnicity, how can they carry out friendly relations? How can they love each other? How can they assist each other to develop? And I think this we have still the potential for development of relationship. It hasn't been yet exhausted, and politicians should do their best, and members of parliament should do their best to promote these relations. In this case, in this proper case, scientific relationships can contribute significantly, and I have the honor to be present at this conference. I met the representatives of Knesset when there was a special event there, and we have discussed special perspectives, how relations between Knesset and Georgian parliament should develop, and what is the role of politicians. And I should mention that in our parliament, one of the largest teams is the team of assisting to friendship between developing relations between Knesset and Georgian parliament. And I consider that this conference is one step forward in this way. I welcome you and wish you successes in your work. Thank you. Many thanks, Kalbatoni Manana.
His Excellency Mr. Yuval Fuchs, the Ambassador of Israel in Georgia, for greetings.
Thank you very much, Dr. Papava, members of Georgian Parliament, member of Israeli Parliament, Knesset. I want to tell you that my last meeting last week on Friday, just before Shabbat, was with Speaker Upashvili, after he returned from Israel a few weeks ago, and I think that we are on the right way in strengthening relations between our parliament, but this is not the topic of our conversation here today of this conference. Many friends, Roin, Jamlet, friends from the Jewish community, friends from Georgia, Guram, many other friends. I apologize that I don't mention each and any of you by name. I look at this conference in two directions. One, it is important as such, as a conference. Research of Georgian Jewry, Central Asia Jewry, including Caucasus, is important as it is, as a theme. My concern, I have to say, is more for the future than for the past. I believe we have to respect, to cherish, and to learn the past. It is very important, and we all know that especially in this country, and not only in this country, also in other countries of the Caucasus and Central Asia, Jews have known relative tolerance with no anti-Semitism more or less throughout the centuries. And it is a coincidence or not a coincidence that this year Georgia celebrates 2,600 years of friendship between Georgia and the Jewish people. But I have to say, as you all know, and those of you who still do not know will know soon, what is left of Georgian Jewish community is very little. There used to be a community which was above 100,000 Jews. Today, maybe 5,000 Jews left in Georgia. This is a reality. If we like it or not, I like it as a Zionist. I want Jews to come to Israel, like my grandparents did in the early 20th century. But I know that this is not exactly their perception among some of you here. But this is a reality. This is a reality. And this reality is not going to change. We have to base the friendship between our people and states, on a wider basis. And I believe, Professor Papava, not only the parliaments, also the academia, could be a very important dimension in this future cooperation. Not that we don't have cooperation. It was mentioned by Roin. Where are you? Here. Roin Motavelli was mentioned before that. But I believe we could explore more themes for our cooperation. And I believe the key word is partnerships. Partnerships, partnerships, and partnerships. To explore each and any possible way to strengthen cooperation, to do research together, or to exchange student scholarships, etc. I believe both sides can benefit, and I'm almost confident, I am confident that such cooperation, such partnership will result from this very important conference. And again, I believe the conference is important having it. So thank you very much, Member of Knesset Ochayon, Mr. Ochayon, for choosing Tbilisi for, I don't remember in how many capitals you have been. You mentioned kama birot haytem kvar? Many, in many capitals. So it's about time after 2,600 years that there will be a conference here. But at the same time, let us not forget the future, because this is where we are going. So let us look toward the future, and let's look how to take this opportunity to strengthen partnerships in whatever field you are dealing with. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Ეხლა კი ნება მიბოცეთ სიტყვა მივცე პროფესორ მარიამ ჩაჩიბაიას, ებრაულ-არამეულ დეპარტამენტის ხელმძღვანელს, ივანე ჯავახიშვილი, თბილისის სახელმწიფო უნივერსიტეტი.
The topic of my paper is the Hebrew-Aramaic studies at Tbilisi State University. The study of Hebrew language at Tbilisi State University began when the statehood of Israel had not even been restored yet. In Georgia, the interest in studying the Hebrew language was conditioned by two reasons. The first was the necessity to know the language of the original of the Bible, proceeding from the significance it has for development of the world civilization, especially in connection with the dissemination of Christianity. Great is the role of the Bible from the viewpoint of history of the Georgian language and literature as well, because it was the old Georgian translations of the Bible text that reflected the most ancient layer of the development of the Georgian language and literature. The second defining factor promoting the studying of the Hebrew language in this country was the lengthy history of the settlement of the Jewish people on our territory, when resulted in the presence of the Hebrew written monuments here. In this connection, special interest attaches to the biblical text discovered on the territory of Georgia, namely the Lailashi Bible, 10th, 11th century, which is preserved at the National Center of Manuscripts and is also known as Tbilisi manuscript. Of all the Masoretic manuscripts, Lailashi Bible is considered to be the best. When publishing an academic critical edition of the Hebrew Bible, which is the most urgent task of biblical studies, the Tbilisi manuscript is one of the main sources. In his time, academician Georgi Tsereteli began studying Moses Pentateuch. Here, we should also mention the treatise on grammar written in the Hebrew language during to the year 1028. It was discovered on the Black Sea shore in Gagra. Apart from that, quite a great number of our manuscripts and epigraphic inscriptions have been discovered on the Georgian territory. According to the information of Georgian Chronicle, Jews have been living in Georgia since the 6th century BC. It is very difficult to determine the time of every new way of the settlement of Jews in Georgia, but one is beyond doubt. In the 1st centuries AD, they already lived in Tcheta and Tbilisi, maybe in other places as well, and had their own sections in these cities, Ubani Huriata, the section of Hebrews, and founded their sanctuaries, Bagini Huriata. After establishing their first settlements gradually, they started to live in other places as well. As it seems, they were mainly moving westwards. The dispersion of Jews from Tcheta was caused by Christianization of their sanctuaries Baginebi. At any rate, it must have been one of the significant causes of wide-scale setting of Jews in the territory of Georgia. As a result of the permanent long contacts with the local Georgian population, the national traditions of Jews have undergone certain changes. The native language of the local Jews has been Georgian so far, at any rate, until they immigrated to Israel. I think it is clear that here we deal with a special phenomenon, a Jew who has a Georgian name and family name and speaks Georgian. Hence, the name that has been attached to them for centuries, the Georgian Jew. Though for their centuries-old history, they have preserved and to some extent even developed their most ancient linguistic tradition, both written and oral. Greatly interesting are the most ancient Hebrew monuments that have come to this day, namely, after the archaeological discoveries in Tcheta, the significance of Hebrew and Aramaic languages has grown so much that it may be said that these languages, together with the Middle Persian period, provide basic material for the research in the issues of the Georgian history of the 1st centuries AD. In the 17th of the 19th century, an inscription made in the Hebrew, or to be more correct, in the Talmud Aramaic language was discovered. It was published by Chwalson, a Semitologist and Hebraist. The inscription of Joseph Bar Hazan, excavated in Tcheta Samtauro in 1938, is written in the same language. The prominence of the non-Jewish personal names that occur in these inscriptions may have been from the local non-Jewish circles, though on the other hand, it also may be taken into account that since the Babylon captivity, it was the custom of Jews to use the personal names of the non-Jewish original alongside with their Jewish names. The 18th, 19th century Jewish epigraphic monuments discovered in different parts of Georgia have been studied by specialist Nissan Babalikashvili, a Georgian Hebraist. The above monuments are of great interest both for studying the history of Georgian Jews and from the viewpoint of Jewish epigraphy in general. The systematic scientific study of the Hebrew language, which envisages Georgian interests, what began at Tbilisi State University in 1944. At first, the language of the Bible, Old Hebrew, was taught. At the beginning, it was taught at the Department of the Oriental Caucasian Languages of the Faculty of Philology. And in 1945, since the foundation of the Faculty of Oriental Studies, it was taught at the Department of Semitology, which is an indispensable element in training semitologists. The department was headed by academician Georgi Tsereteli. He entrusted Konstantin Tsereteli, then a postgraduate and subsequently an outstanding Semitologist, with delivering a course of lectures on the Hebrew and Aramaic languages. Orientalists from Moscow and Petersburg often noted that it was great courage on the part of Georgians to mention the word Semitologist. At Pittsburgh University, where there are long traditions of Semitology, to this day, the department is called Arabic Philology, though the Hebrew language as one of the Semitic languages and other Semitological subjects are taught there as well, but the word Semit has been avoided to this day. Today, today there is the Jewish state of Israel, where after almost 20 centuries, the Hebrew language is still the state and spoken language. And when most of the Georgian Jews have returned to their ancient motherland, which they had to leave 26 centuries ago, and some of them much later, and the Georgian language in their speech was replaced by their native language again, it becomes necessary to study the Hebrew language and literature more deeply and on a wider scale to introduce the live modern Hebrew in our university. For the Jews themselves, the ways and methods of reviving and developing the language, Hebrew language, are very important. Great attention is paid to the vocabulary. At the Academy of the Hebrew Language Research, in the Old Hebrew vocabulary is going on, new meanings are addressed, new terms are created. By the way, in this connection, a definite role was played by Boris Gaponov's translation of The Night in the Panther's Skin into the Hebrew language. It includes such lexical units that were not known in the Old Hebrew language. After these words had been used in the Hebrew translation of the kin in the panther's skin, they were included in the vocabulary of the modern Hebrew dictionaries. At present, the scholarly research work at the Hebrew-Aramaic Studies Department is continued in one of the basic directions, namely Northwest Semitic languages, biblical and modern Hebrew, Aramaic, and others, lexicological and lexicography. A definite specific sign of Jewish-Georgian relations is translating Jewish literature directly from the originals. In this connection, great attention is paid both to the Georgian translations of the most ancient literary monuments, biblical texts, and the specimen of the medieval Jewish poetry and modern literary works, Shmuel Agnon's works, the anthology of modern Jewish poetry, and others. In 2003, a Jewish-Georgian dictionary was published. Intensive work on making up the Jewish-Georgian dictionary of the Bible and a modern Jewish-Georgian dictionary is going on. At the initiative and by the efforts of academician Tsereteli, intensive teaching of Oriental languages, Hebrew among them, was introduced into Georgian schools of Tbilisi, which are taught by graduates of the Hebrew-Aramaic Department of the Faculty of Oriental Studies at Tbilisi State University. In 2005, a culturological center of Georgian Jewish relations was founded at Tbilisi State University. It is headed by academician Guram Lord-Kipanidze. Sorry. And at last, I will shorten my, my paper. The Educational Scholarly Institute of Cultural Research at Tbilisi State University, headed by Chikovani, as one of the participants, is taking part implementing a most interesting project, Narration of the Jewish Identity at the Dawn of Globalization at Humboldt Institute. The project is financed by the Volkswagen Foundation. Georgian scholars are engaged in such spheres as the formation of the Jewish identity at the beginning of the 20th century, where very significant changes were taking place in Georgia. It is this summer that in Paris, the Association of Hebrew Studies organized a conference where Georgian scholars presented their reports on the work they have carried out. Today, on the territory of both countries, historical, cultural monuments have been created for centuries or preserved. They are significant both to Georgian and Jews. Given such a situation, it is not clear why there are no permanent, formal, educational, and scientific research relations between Georgian and Israeli universities. I wish that from this very day, such real and not only just declared relations be established with the universities of Bar-Ilan, Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, and so on. Thank you very much indeed.
ძვირფასო მეგობრებო, ჩვენ დაგვრჩა კიდევ ორი მისასალმებელი სიტყვა და რადგანაც უკვე დროში საკმაოდ შემჭიდროებულები ვართ, გთხოვთ რომ შევამოყოთ ჩვენი სიტყვები. Now I want to invite Professor Yaron Harel.